If you've been around the channel for a little while, you may have remembered this short video I made back in March where I recommended 5 different roguelites. Now that video was well enough for when I made it and my quality standards at the time, but it is one major flaw, well besides it not being very good, and that was the 5th game I talked about, Underdogs. You see, all of the games in that video were pretty low calorie roguelites, cheap little experiences that were quality, but as I just said, were little. Underdogs was not one of those. Underdogs is in fact one of the coolest and most underrated roguelites I have ever played. And even if only 1 or 2 of you check out the game because of this video, that's still one more person playing the game that's not just me. This is honestly one of the best roguelites I've ever played. And it sucks because I don't see anybody talk about it ever. Now that's probably because of 2 reasons. For starters, it's a VR game. The reputation VR gets in terms of games isn't exactly very high. Most VR experiences are just working off the fact that they are in VR and that your face is right in front of the action. It's like a lot of Wii games that think it's so cool that they have motion control without really thinking about a reason they should have motion control. Like, is me being in VR here really making the experience better? In some cases, yes, definitely. Horror games in VR work really well because you physically can't look away. And then other times it's straight up just a gimmick. Like, how much does Minecraft really improve by being in VR? Most of the time, the answer is the games don't. Which sucks because Underdogs validates itself being in VR, which I'll discuss why in a minute. And reason number 2 why I don't think many people talk about the game as much as they should. It's an M-rated VR game from a studio nobody's ever heard of that's $30. I'm not complaining about the price, by the way, it's more than worth it. But the problem is, people see the $30 price tag and get turned off immediately because of how VR games are seen. I've noticed VR games just kind of get treated as toys more than actual video games most of the time. They're usually short, simple, and way too much money. So for anybody looking for a VR game to play, it's easy to see the game's price point coming from an indie studio and just throw it in there with the rest of the VR slop. And if this game is slop, then it's some of the best slop I've ever experienced. So yeah, the game's just a little obscure, which doesn't make me weep inside that more people haven't experienced this. I think it's time I've stopped justifying why nobody knows it though and start explaining why more people should. Your name is Mr. Stelk No Talks, or as I'll be referring to him, Rig, and the person next to you is King. You're a mech fighter who is heading towards the last human-run place on Earth, New Bracca. The rest of the world is run by this AI known as Big Sis. The reason you're headed towards here is because of King. King's the person who got you into mech fighting in the first place and has this thingy in his brain that Big Sis wants into. And the reason you're traveling to New Bracca is because it's got this fun bubble around it that blocks out Big Sis's control. The problem is they're not just letting anybody in there. The outside of the bubble literally has the words "F*** off" written on it. If you want up, you're gonna have to fight your way up. And that's where the game opens, us on our way to the city. And also leads us into our first fight area of the game, the killbox. But not just yet. We need to go through the tutorial. I skipped the tutorial. The killbox. The killbox, like any other roguelite's first area, serves to introduce what's to come in the game. And since this is the first area, I think it'd be good if I explained how you actually do Underdogs. You see, you don't actually play as your mech known as the Rilla like you might think. Instead, you're playing as the guy inside the robot. At the very start of every match, you grab these little handles that let you control the arms. The Rilla doesn't actually have working legs, instead it's got beefy ass arms. So how you move is by grabbing the ground and physically propelling yourself. But if you actually want to deal some damage, you're gonna have to punch, which doesn't have a button tied to it. Instead, punching and how much damage you can do with a punch is tied to how fast you swing in real life. You can do any type of punch depending on how you want to attack, or what is the best against a certain enemy, but the faster you do it, the better in most cases. And your final form of hitting stuff is the ram. Plant 2 arms on the ground and swing them behind you in order to rush anything in your way. Great for when you need something to get off of you, or for when you need to throw something to the other side of the arena. And that's pretty much your only input: moving, punching, and dashing. How the game makes this interesting is in the technique. When one arm is grabbing and moving around, you can't punch with that arm, meaning if you want to dedicate to moving, you're gonna have to put yourself at the disadvantage of not being able to cover that side of you, because, shocker, the human body can only do so much. If something is on your left and you're choosing to move with your left arm, you're not going to be able to attack that thing. Vice versa with the right. So if you're surrounded on all sides, you can choose to fight and try to escape by using both arms simultaneously to run away and get into a better position, or say screw it and start thrashing around wildly, who cares? There's also how you should punch. Not every enemy is built the same way. Some have armor that will deflect your punches. Some have spikes that'll not only deal damage but get one of your arms stuck on them. And headshots will stun enemies for a small period of time, so hitting them there is a good idea. That's not even to mention when you should punch. If you hit an enemy into another enemy, they'll take damage, so lining up a swing when multiple enemies are in a line will let you dish out more hurt. But having two arms in a cockpit has more to it than just fighting and moving around. Your left and right arms, as well as the cockpit known as the bubble, have all individual health bars. Why does this matter? Well, when either of your arms lose all of their health, they will fall off, leaving you stranded with no defense on whichever side you lost the arm, having no way to move around and attack at the same time. And bashing is just straight up not available anymore. When this happens, you're forced to play this weird in-between of offensive and defensive that I can't really put my finger on of what I should even call it. You can't defend because you can barely even move, and you can't attack very well because with every swing you're leaving yourself stranded to any enemy that could be attacking you from any other angle. And of course there's the cockpit, which this game calls the bubble. The bubble's where you are, and if the bubble takes enough damage you'll lose that shield around you, meaning if anything attacks you after it's lost all of its health is instant death. Game over, that's it. I love this system. It prioritizes resource management of all things in the middle of a mech fight. How is that? Remember how I mentioned both of your arms have health bars? They also have hitboxes, no duh, but those hitboxes block incoming attacks. Meaning, if you basically shield with your arms in real life, you can prevent damage coming to the bubble. I have never seen a VR game do this before. It was a while ago playing this game when I discovered it, so I don't really have the footage, but I was sitting there slack-jawed and buggy-eyed when I found this out. Most VR games don't really have hitboxes for the player, and I figured this game would basically be the same thing. But when I felt my controller vibrate and the damage go to the arm instead of the cockpit, I was astounded. And because of all of these systems working together, it makes me not think of these things as a health bars as much as they are resource bars. If I ever get backed into a corner and there's a lot of enemies coming at me, I need to make the choice of which arm should I make take this damage. Or do I risk everything in Hail Mary trying to take all of them down before they can get to my bubble? Now, if your bubble pops, it's not the end of the world, more so a few minutes beforehand. If you manage to not take any damage while the bubbles popped, you can actually just survive and make it to the next day. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself with that whole can of worms. It's simple on the surface, but when you really peel back those layers and start playing, it's wildly complex. I'm really only scratching the surface of the amount of ways you can innovate off the simple concept of punching. It's insane. But punching is only as good as what you're punching, so what are you punching? The first area, the kill box, only has a few enemies. Roaches are this game's Goombas. They're small, weak, very easily telegraphed when they're about to attack. They're kind of pushovers. The only real challenge with them is when they're in hordes. Outside of that, they're a piece of cake. Junk dogs, which are the most common enemy of the kill box. These guys have a good amount of health, can attack in a variety of ways like charging at you or leaping, and come in so many fun colors, like armor, spikes, and big and evil. Alpha dogs have cheese graters for faces and introduce you to turbo enemies. Sometimes when boss enter the kill box, they'll be blue, which means they're turbo. Pretty much just means they attack twice as fast, so they're more dangerous. The other condition these guys introduce you to is overheat. When an enemy is overheated, they can't attack for a small amount of time. They can still move, but they just can't really do anything. After the big dogs go turbo for a few seconds and chase you around, they'll go into an overheat phase in which they're vulnerable. These are the biggest bosses of the kill box, having the most health and being the most dangerous out of any enemy, because if they get too close to you, they'll latch on to whichever limb they're closest to. And finally, the wild card of the kill box, the bomb bots. They're about as what they say on the tin. If they take any damage or get close enough to you, they'll start to explode. But the fun thing about the enemies is that they all tie back into the gimmick about technique. You can hit the bomb bot as hard as you can so they can go away from you, or you can hit them towards an enemy which they'll get stuck on them, taking both of them out. You could wait for the alpha dog to stop rampaging so you can attack it, or you could hit a smaller enemy like a roach in its direction, which it'll grab onto it, dealing damage to whichever enemy is in its jaws. A big part of its complexity also comes from the area you're in, but I think it's best if I save that for a little later. From just this first area alone, there's already so much going on for a game that has 3 inputs. Well, I say the first area, but technically we're in the first level. Underdogs is broken up into days, which every day ends with a mech fight, excluding day 1, which begins and ends with one. After every fight, you get some rewards and the day is over. But what you can do with that day up until a fight is almost entirely random. You have 3 turns you can make during one day, each turn being represented by different parts of the day. You have the morning, noon, and evening to go around and do whatever. But whatever could this whatever be? The answer is what the game feels like that day. There is an endless amount of options for the random shit that could just happen. So you're given 2 choices every turn. What those choices are random. You could get a shop as one of your choices, but who's to say what that shop is? You could go trade, but who are you trading with? You could sell some stuff, but who are you selling to? You could go hail and go looking for trouble, but who knows what'll happen when you choose that option? And then there's all the other random junk that can be an option. I have no idea if I'll get this option in the footage I've recorded, but back when I played this game casually a few months ago, I remember one of the shops I could go to was called the 9-Year-Old Army, and it was just a bunch of kids who had swarmed in this little dingy ass part of town that sold stuff, but because they're 9-year-olds, they had no idea what they were selling, so they just gave you random shit they had. You could go get some repairs for your mech, but you get the gist. There's so much randomness and variability, it keeps it fresh no matter how much I play. There's a lady who will sell decoys that attract enemies inside the ring, and if you keep buying from her throughout the day, she'll get better and better decoys that'll make bots explode or electrified. When entering one of the shops, the shop lady could be getting held up because she hasn't paid back people who lent her money. So you could steal something and leave, which would get you banned from the shop, just leave without any commotion, or give the thugs $500 so her shop can stay open. And oh my god, the hail button. They meant it when they said go looking for trouble with this one. Not only is the outcome wildly different every time you select it, but they usually involve rolling the dice and see what happens. For example, you could go scavenging in a junkyard, which typically will give you a free item. But after you get whatever you found, scavengers will start eyeing you up. You could roll the dice and stay there for more stuff, but there's a chance you'll get jumped, meaning you'll have to surrender all of your items you found. Or alternatively, just leave with the one you got. There's this guy who will upgrade your arms for free, but as he's doing so, he gets progressively more and more excited with every buff. And the more excited he becomes, the higher chance he'll mess it up when upgrading it. You could just find a dead guy lying there and loot his corpse. But after the first item you get, it becomes riskier to search forward. You can find a casino and gamble away one of your items for a chance of getting something better or just cash. Or damn it all, give you something completely out of your control. Or there could just be a guy who comes up and damages one of your parts of the riddle because f*** you, you deserve that. There can be this one kid who comes up and steals one of your items, in which there will be these 2 ladies who point you to where he is. You could spend an extra turn getting your stuff back, which is a guarantee, or just move on without whatever he took. If you go after him, you can beat the shit out of him and take everything he had. This game is amazing. And I'm still running into new garbage. Just the run I did before scripting this very part of the video had a new cutscene I had never seen before. It didn't really add anything or do anything special, it just happened. It introduces us to our first roadblock in our way to New Bracca. Usam shall be the dickhead for the evening. These mech fights are the real deal. In this arena, it's kill or be killed, and he is very interested in the kill part, specifically the section revolving us. After 5 days of meandering, you'll have to fight him, so those few days leading up to the smackdown gives you just enough time to prepare for your epic brawl. However, you had the opportunity to spend your 3 turns at the end of them as another pit brawl. But before you step back into the ring, you have some stuff you can fiddle with. For example, you can choose to get a Patreon, which isn't the choice I made in real life. Instead, I decided to get memberships on my channel. Please give me your money. The Patreon you choose for your fight is basically your sponsor. If you win the fight after choosing a certain person, they'll give you good rewards for the next day when you're going about town. So if you choose one of the shops to sponsor you, they'll give you better prices, as well as certain categories of rewards after the fight. It's not guaranteed what you get like literally everything else in the game, but you get a general ballpark of what you'll be getting. But Patreons aren't all sunshine and roses, however. As well as all the good stuff they give you, they also give you debuffs and wacky conditions for whatever fight you're going into. There can be new versions of the jungle dogs called bloodhounds that have armor over their head, making it impossible to headshot them. All of the robots can be turbo for some reason. Your arms will get overheated if you stand still. Plagues of locusts will descend upon your crops. Whatever your Patreon feels like is what you're getting. The game is generous enough to give you a choice between 2 though, so you're not totally fucked. And then there's the equipment page. Here's where you get to put on all of those fun doodads you found. Swap out your arms, swap out weapons, give permanent permanent upgrades to certain pieces of equipment, heal yourself if you have a healing kit, and the most important part, give yourself add-ons. Add-ons are little gizmos that will give anything you put them on extra functionality, but usually have a little side effect that brings them down a peg. That is, of course, if it's one of the lower rarity add-ons. Like most roguelites, everything has certain tiers to it. Common, uncommon, rare, legendary. Common and uncommon stuff is usually something like, you can do more damage, but you'll also suffer 1 second of overheat on whichever arm this add-on is equipped. With rarer tier add-ons following suit, just without the defect most of the time, such as one of your arms randomly going turbo or something. And then there's the legendary tier add-ons. These are usually only rewarded for beating one of the bosses in the game. These are typically insane upgrades, like bashing giving you invulnerability for 2 seconds, or when the cockpit takes damage, both arms get turboed for 10 seconds. These add-ons usually only ever apply to the body, but they're still amazing nevertheless. But whenever you're done buffing your bot, you can start the match and let your automated onslaught begin. And what I've just described to you is pretty much the basic game loop for the first area of the game. And since being in the jungly parts lasts at most 40 minutes, it's shockingly in-depth. But not after too long of bot bashing, machine mangling, device dismantling, mechanism massacring, and some contraption crashing, you make it to the first boss of the game. Mr. Blonde Hair, hard name to pronounce, has a mech just like yours, but his is slightly different. It has working legs, swords for fists, and 4 buzzsaws that detract from its back. This is your first real fight of the game. I killed this thing in 4 hits. I love his design and gimmick. He kind of makes you approach the game like it's Punch-Out now. He'll keep his guard up pretty much at all times, so you have to go in close and bait him into attacking you in order to deal some real damage. Because just like you, his robot has a bubble. That's not the only way you can deal damage, hitting him pretty much anywhere will, but hitting him in the bubble will stun him for a second and deal increased damage, so you're wasting your time if you attack anywhere else on him. Ignoring how if you get the right amount of equipment, he's a complete cakewalk, he's actually a really good boss. For his first phase of the fight, he'll just dance around, keeping his distance, waiting for you to get in close. For when you do get close, he'll attack. Just like in Punch-Out, there's a lot of strategy around when you should attack him. If you go guns blazing and start wailing on him, you'll hit the blades, which count as armor, stunning your arm for a second. So you'll have to wait for him to attack in order to attack back. You can either dodge his punch then counterpunch, or interrupt his senseless slashing with a solid sucker punch. The former is far safer, but the later will get him out quicker, because like in Punch-Out, he's got a few tricks up his sleeve. After around 30 seconds to a minute, he'll activate his infamous buzzsaws. 4 will deploy at all sides of his body, and after a second or two of lining himself up, he'll charge forward directly at you. It's pretty easy to avoid if he starts charging it in the right spot, like in a corner or something, but if he's near the middle of the arena, good luck. This thing is huge and absolutely demolishes you if you're caught, cutting into every piece of your feeble machine it can reach. And he's not done there with his whack-ass moves. If you get him to low enough health, he'll start Hail Marying and going turbo, spinning around with devil may care trying to kill you. Why is he so invested in this? Like I said earlier, in the arena, it's kill or be killed. Whoever loses this fight only does so because they're not alive for the after party. So the strategy of playing with reckless abandon to get him out faster might not be a bad one. But if you think you're skilled enough to deal with everything he can throw at you, playing safer and from a distance is also a great way to take him down. Just an amazing first boss. It's kind of pathetic if you get the right gear to smash him up, but assuming you don't do that, he's awesome. He has so much freedom with how you can tackle him, it's great. Especially when you factor in the arena. The game isn't generous enough to just put you in a rectangle with enemies to fight. There's random junk scattered throughout. There are broken cars that can be moved, spinning pillars that you can knock enemies into, spikes littering the walls, and occasionally in the middle of the fight, they'll turn on the grinder. An entire wall will become engulfed in buzzsaws, making it perfect to throw enemies into. Why do I bring all of this stuff up now? Well, that's because in one of my runs, I was struggling fighting this guy a bit, until I remembered, oh yeah, one of my arms has fingers because of a weapon I found. I bet I can throw this explosive barrel at his face, can't I? And then he died in 2 hits. I love this game so much because at nearly every corner, it encourages outside the box thinking. And speaking of outside the box, that's exactly where we're going, because beating this guy lets us upgrade from the killbox. After you chuck a barrel at Usum's face enough times, his mech will break down and he'll get knocked out of it, covered in blood from the fight. This is genuinely one of the most brutal moments in the entire game. Underdog will not let you progress until you physically kill this guy on his knees. There is no other option. It's so brutal and messed up for a first time. But as I've been saying, it's kill or be killed. Now that we're the killbox champion, we can graduate from kindergarten to first grade. This purple fella here knows a way for you to get into New Braca. This thing called a backdoor run will take you straight to the top, and it's a way for mech fighters to gain gain their entry up to there somewhat hassle-free. But in order to get this backdoor run, we'll have to fight in his tournament, the Pit. Oh yeah, by the way, it's actually called the Crack Zoo. I don't know where I got the name Pit from. This is the second to last area of the game. Wait, the second to last area of the game? Yeah, okay, the game's kind of short, but I only think that's to its deficit, to be honest. With the amount of random junk that can get thrown at you and the seemingly endless unlock list, I think I'm okay with it being a little short. Most of my runs typically only last me like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and since it's a VR game that hurts my eyes, I'm okay with that. Here we have Area 2. Unlike a lot of games where the things just change visually and they add new enemies, this changes the arena as well. The killbox had the grinder that would turn on every once in a while, and this has its own variant of that, except this time it's way more memorable. The thumper will be turned on randomly, and a giant pillar in the center of the arena will come down and crush anything underneath of it. And I mean anything. You and bots. This is a great time to bring up one of my favorite parts of the game, the different weapons. Like I brought up a second ago when I was talking about the dead man walking, you can get hands if you want to. You start the game off with big meatball fists that definitely suffice, but if you're like most people and your right hand dominated, you'll probably want something more gimmicky for your left hand. So why not a giant claw? It isn't good at all at dealing damage, but what it is good at dealing with is those cars broken around the arena, explosive barrels, bomb bots, and enemies. It can pick these up, and if it can be picked up, you can do anything with it. But you shouldn't pick up literally everything. The bigger enemies weigh more, and thus are not great frisbee material, such as alpha dogs being heavy as heck, making them not the greatest shot puts out there. Also, considering they can still grab your arm during this, I would stray away from that. But maybe if you have some claws and you want to deal with alpha dogs, you can just grab a roach and throw it at it. I love the claw, it's definitely one of my favorites. The ability to grab anything in the game where everything already feels so real with how it occupies space is ingenious. But if you want the claw, except it doesn't grab things, it's way less ingenuitive, and you've always wanted to feel like you had a refrigerator taped to your arm, then this next one is for you. The Bomba is pretty much a souped up version of the knuckleball. It does more damage, is larger, I really don't have a lot to say about it. It's just straight up a better knuckleball. And of course we have to talk about the best weapon. The nail gun is an overpowered beast that violates anything in its path. This thing will deploy friendliness spikes into anything you decide to jab it into. And if they're on the ground when you do this and they're small enough, they can be stuck there. I always grab this thing when I do playthroughs, it's too good not to have. This is where I would also give more in-depth thoughts on other weapons, but you can kind of get the gist. A lot of the other ones are just more variants of the ones we've already talked about, like the nail gun, but it shocks people, or the claw, but it has a range. One of my favorites though, because it's stupid, is the wrecking ball. Remember that punch-out example I made earlier? Here it is again, turning you into Aaron Ryan. There's also an axe that penetrates armor. That's it. This game's weapon diversity is insane. You can go from a tomahawk to a wrecking ball arm. It's great. But all of the weapons are only as good as what you punch with them, which the Crack Zoo happens to have plenty of things to punch, new and old. For starters, the roaches and dogs have both received upgrades. These souped up synthetics can now deal more and take more. Luckily, alpha dogs are unchanged, but have moved down the totem pole quite a bit. That's because of two new mechanized monsters that have claimed the spot of toughest pit mod. For starters,
A real gorilla!
I don't think they ever give this fella a name, so I'm calling it the Gorilla Tank. Hopefully this doesn't become confusing with the name of the mech you're piloting being called the Rilla. Gorilla Tanks are huge, unstoppable beasts that stop at nothing until you're done in, almost rivaling your mech in size. It'll slash, punch, and jump at you. Really anything it can do, it will. Thankfully, even though it's small, giving this ape blood force trauma to the noggin will stop it in its tracks. But that's the difference between this thing and your average pitbot though. You both have the same wingspan, meaning if you can reach it, it can reach you. So anytime you actually want to deal damage to this thing, you have to keep moving away and dodging from it attacking you. This thing feels more like a mini boss than actual enemy most of the time. Its size, damage output, and reach solidify this thing as a monster. Luckily, this thing stays on its own side of the arena unless you move over to where it is first, so that's something. But it's not what I would consider the biggest threat in a regular fight. That goes to the dozers. These Sandeikis smashers play more of a support role to other bots. The Tantrum Crave Tyrants will usually chill behind a bunch of other pit bots and blast shockwaves along the ground. Oh yeah, we also have a new mechanic here. Some things in the Crack Zoo will generate a shockwave effect. These will move across the ground and damage anything they touch, so you and enemies alike. So, as other pit bots are attacking you up close, you'll have this little rhinoceros prick in the back shooting blast waves at you. And when it gets bored of just blasting, it'll charge at you. Also does 1 billion health. God, I love video games. So how exactly are you meant to counter this Titanium Titan? Well, after it dashes at you, it'll have a temporary cooldown where its sides get exposed. Its head is completely armored, so this is really the only way you can deal some real damage. I would argue the gorillas are far deadlier when alone, but these things certainly don't help with anything when you're already being overwhelmed. And if you are being overwhelmed, why not hire some assistance from one of the many new NPCs? And the ones up here are probably my favorites. You have these two rich girls you can either pay to buff a part of your bot for an oncoming fight, or get $2,000 to take increased damage for the next fight. There's this one guy who'll give you a random part if you spill the tea on a random person up here. If you do that though, you'll burn that bridge with them and you can no longer buy stuff. But if it's somebody you don't really care about, then yeah, sure, free part. You can also get friendly pit bots. You can get roaches or jungle dogs. Whichever one you choose will help you during the next fight. These are almost entirely useless, but they're fun. And of course, we have the new hail events as well. King and Rig can just be wandering around when this guy twice their size appears from nowhere, and he flips a coin deciding if he's gonna take all of your money or give you all of his. This game is a masterpiece, as well as a ton of other garbage we frankly don't have to get into. I don't think this area has the variety of bullshit, but I think that's just because the world is slightly better up here. Which leads me into another one of my favorite things about this game. Its style and world are so well done. It truly feels alive with the amount of moving parts it has, like those random cutscenes I was talking about earlier. In one of them, you can see a different challenger trying to fight Usum and get demolished. Or all of them have little cinematics for when a new day begins. You get to see Rig talk about how he spent his night or how he's been feeling. Like him not being able to get sleep because somebody's screaming in the distance, or him playing FIFA. They're all so charming with how it makes the world feel alive. Even if they're not a part of it, it's still moving. Even though they're the main protagonists, they're largely unimportant with how the world works. They're not the first people to have gone on a quest like this, and they won't be the last. The world they inhabit is brutal, and they are not special, which is so cool. It really rings home that getting to the top is not an easy feat, when every other day the main protagonist is getting robbed and swindled and stabbed and beaten up, and we have to risk our lives nightly. What adds on to this is King. Here's a problem and a complaint. This game is immersive. So damn immersive to where I keep hitting things in real life and injuring my fingers. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to find this while editing, but there's this really funny clip of me trying to throw a jungle dog into the audience and hitting my ceiling fan really hard and recoiling in pain. Since you rarely move and you can see your arms in front of you realistically moving to how you would want to move your arms in real life, it's so easy to forget you're playing a video game and just imagine you're here. King especially helps with that. While you're doing your brawls before bedtime, he'll be talking in your ear the entire fight, giving you tips or just reacting to what you're doing. If you throw something into a crusher, he'll say he wants to watch you throw stuff in there all day. If you throw a pit bot and an alpha dog while it's rampaging, he'll be shocked that you did that. If there's enemies behind you, on your left or on your right, he'll yell at you about where they're coming from. So if you're attacking to the left and something is sneaking up on you, he'll yell on your right. He has dialogue if the bubble is damaged. He has dialogue if it's about to pop. He has dialogue if your arms get damaged. He has dialogue for when you throw an enemy into a waterfall and they get electrocuted, where he calls them a pissing toaster. King carries a lot of the game's immersion for me, especially since what he says is also connected to the plot of the game. Once you reach the crack zoo, Sis will become more aggressive trying to get into his head. So at certain points, he'll stop talking when he's trying to fight her out, meaning that there are points where he's not going to be able to help you during certain stretches of time. It's not like King is a huge help, but I would be lying if I said he didn't come in handy. So taking that away for a challenge and tying it into the narrative is so f***ing rad. When you can physically hear somebody in your head talking to you and reacting to what you're doing, it doesn't even feel like you're playing a game at that point. And then I punch my cabinets, you get the point. Like, these cutscenes, even though you might call them low budget because they're all pretty much slideshows, I honestly adore. The whole game has this pseudo cell shaded art style to it. So all of the cutscenes, being comic book style, look really nice. I talked for far too long, it's time to kick somebody's teeth in. Here is the champion of the crack zoo, Priscilla. This lady here nobody really likes, and even the person she works for that's giving us our backdoor run is banking on her death. How has nobody been able to beat her yet? Well, that's because of the machine she maneuvers. It has a f***ing gun. She has a praying mantis kind of aesthetic going on. Her computerized pest is a quadruped and plays a lot more defensively than the last guy, choosing to stand at range more than anything. How she fights and how you have to approach her are kind of a combination of the gorillas and the dozers. She'll chill at a range, generating shockwaves. When you get in close, she'll start spinning at arm's length, making her a lot more technical than the last. Also considering her main gimmick. As the fight goes on, roaches will pour into the arena trying to trip you up, but they'll most commonly spawn in when it's cannon time. She'll launch bombs at you, and the only way she'll stop is if you get close enough, so you have to fight past the swaths of roaches in order to get up to her, as well as avoiding bombs she's spitting. She excels when she can get you as far away from her as possible, but if you can break through the gauntlet she's set up and get in close, she's defenseless. Yes, she can do her spin thing, but that's really all she can do. Just another great boss all in all. Also, if you want a testament to how strong the nail gun is, for some reason when I was fighting her when she had a sliver of health left, her AI broke and did absolutely nothing. Let us go to and fro on a sleigh ride in the snow. Now that we're done with her, and you hopefully didn't notice I forgot her name and tried to dance around saying it, the purple guy introduces us to Enrica. She's a new Bracca Union officer, and she can get you that backdoor run we crave so dearly. Which leads us to the final part of the game, the backdoor run itself. Instead of the typical roguelite ending with a huge final floor, it goes in a bit of a different direction here. The typical runtime for one of the pit fights in the game is usually around like 5 minutes to 10 minutes. But the backdoor run is a non-stop onslaught that will leave you physically and mentally exhausted after its half-hour run. This is how it works. You go through around 15 rooms, all filled with as many bots as they can put in there. And after around 5 rooms have been cleared out, you get a short break where you can heal your mech and buy friendly pit bots to help you fight. The jungle dog is about as useless as it's always been, but the friendly alpha dog is actually really helpful. It's built like a pincushion and it can grab onto one bot at a time, alleviating some of the bot bashing needed to progress. I also like the physics on this button. No real notes here, I just think it's fun to click. The backdoor run is insane, and you better have brought enough money to support repairing your robot because you're going to need it. Because some of the bullshit it throws at you is benign. They'll have pit bots come out of the floor, they'll drop them from the ceiling, they'll take you on an elevator that leads into a room where you're immediately surrounded on all angles. Great. Usually the game gives you little breaks in between fights so you can rest your body since the game is kind of a workout, but this doesn't. If you want a break, you have to pause and walk away. You ain't built for this. Genuinely, by the end, this game is wanting you to suffer. The final room is literally an uphill battle against swarms of jungle dogs, with the final bit before the elevator being a massive fuck you spawning 2 gorillas. We're not the only person struggling though. King is kind of going through the ringer this entire climb. Big Sis is fully in his brain now, and at the halfway mark of the climb, he logs off. Is he dead? Is he under control? Is he under so much pain where he can't even talk? The only way to know is to get into the encryption field, which luckily now that your right arm in real life hates you, you can make it up to. And right as we cross the field,
what the fuck? Ricardo, she's gone. Rig, I don't feel her nowhere, bruv. That bitch ain't nowhere. Are we in the fields? Oh my fucking light. You got us into New Bracca's encryption fields.
I love this moment so much. It's so satisfying after all of this time hearing him struggle in your ear, for all of the game audio to cut out except for his voice. It's soothing in a way, like you've made it this far and you're finally in New Bracca. But the fight isn't over yet. The backdoor run might be physically taxing, but it ain't the real challenge. These guys are. These 3 be the wardens. They all might look identical, but individually they have funny tricks up their sleeves. Each of them have different elemental attacks they can hit you with. One of them will mess up your POV and pull you farther away from the cockpit visually, messing up your frame of reference for where everything is. One that will make everything around you go dark with only the things close to you being visual, and one that will make you partially deaf. And since King's audio cues are back, not being able to hear when there's 3 targets all around you trying to get you at once is kind of a problem. Luckily, none of them do that much damage on their own, but they have a boatload of health. Now, if that was the whole thing, it would be pretty easy, but of course, there's a twist. After one of them kicks the bucket, another one will come along and rip its head off and place it on its own body, effectively turning it into a hydra. This is one of the coolest gimmicks I've ever seen for a boss in a video game. It seriously is a damn shame more people haven't played this game because, oh my god, after 2 go down, we've finally created a 3-headed thingy. It'll Hail Mary and start shooting out these shockwaves that do crazy bubble damage, enough to get you down in a few hits. Kind of anticlimactic that you just go up and wallop on their faces, but I digress. After the beast has been bested, Enrica jumps on top of the bot and gets you guys barcoded, officially crowning you both as new Bracca citizens. And now that you're in here and you have some downtime, you can finally see why Big Sis was attacking King. Why has she soloed him out? That's because hidden in there is her big dirty secret. Big Sis is in New Bracca. That's where her central computer is. The officers, including Enrica, are all under her thumb. Right as we get that revelation, though, dozens of New Bracca soldiers come to our front door asking where Ricardo is. He was busy sneaking around back so he could get the 20-foot tall mech and kill all of them, because why wouldn't he? King hops in the Rilla and they both go looking for Big Sis. The game is over. Okay, so the game has been getting constantly updated since it came out, and I guess they're waiting to add the big final finale for that. But as it stands, though, I think this is a satisfying enough conclusion. I mean, they achieved their goal of getting in, we're just kind of left on a cliffhanger of what happens next. What happens next is the game giving you like 50 fucking rewards. This game has more unlocks than the days I've been alive. They're not afraid to load you up. You can get new NPCs to visit, new add-ons, new weapons. They hand these things out like candy. But that's the main game. You could of course go back in for more runs whenever you feel like it, but there's also extras we can look at, like the sandbox feature added through updates. If you ever feel like playing Underdogs but want to take none of it seriously and have the odd desire to give yourself an instant kill wrecking ball while fighting 10 Usums, then the Sandboxer mode is for you. There are 3 modes in here. Challenge mode, where you get to do pre-made challenges created by the team behind the game, which are all great. This consists of stuff like Junk Dog Baseball, or fighting alongside Usum as you make sure he doesn't die. I kind of wanted to make him die. Or racing around a little racetrack they made. These are all really fun as side challenge modes. Then there's the community made stuff, which is about how you would expect it to be. And then my favorite of the 3, fuck around. For all of my audio listeners, that is literally what it is called. The text on screen in which you would have to click to select this is deadass just called that. And I've got to say, that is a very apt name because that is precisely what you do. Have you ever wanted to give yourself a slim axe and go fight around 20 armored dogs? Sure. Have 2 wrecking balls and a terrified Usum hiding in the corner? Why not? Screw around with all of his stats until you've gotten this abomination that can't even stand up to the point where it's basically flopping around in pain? Yeah, I love this mode. It's entirely unnecessary, but damn it, it's so fun. And that's pretty much Underdogs. It's shocking how in-depth this game is, if I'm going to be honest. And as I was saying earlier, most VR games kind of just end their gimmick at being a VR game, but Underdogs, if anything, proves that VR games deserve to be so much more than what they are. This isn't a great VR game. It's a great game, regardless of the specification of format. But that is Underdogs. Genuinely one of the best VR games ever. Nay, the thing that justifies VR, and it sucks that nobody has ever heard of this, but I guess that just makes it an Underdog. Together